Well, there's others down here you can pass. Merry Christmas. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Is this for the city council last night and they
Left it over for the meeting.
or they're like, we'll
It's
re-gift it
much
to these
too
guys?
delicious.
No,
This cake is
that's for you.
delicious.
Nope, it was care of.
Who
Lisa
brought
Romney.
this? Lisa brought the cake.
Lisa
brought the cake.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. We like to celebrate the last, meeting of the year. And we don't have a council meeting, we decided to cancel it.
Oh, really?
This is it,
Wow.
here.
Okay.
Lucky. Lucky you.
All right. Well, Whitney, when you're ready, give me a thumbs up and we'll get
Good.
started.
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. We're not broadcasting on YouTube, even just audio. Huh?
Just the audio's going.
Okay. All right then. Well, welcome everybody to our Planning Commission meeting this evening. Let's go ahead and get started with a Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all stand and join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so I felt kind of bad, but for the second month in a row, the person that I'd asked to do it thought is unavailable tonight. So I'm not paying them enough. You're right. They didn't know there was Martinelli's coming. Anyway, so here's one of the things that I have been thinking about instead. I've spent some time recently actually researching some of the earliest legislatures in the state of Utah, and looking at some of the individual members of those legislatures. And there's some of the members that seem to be well-known people, and everybody knows all about them and whatever else. And there's some others that, in some ways, may have almost been forgotten by history, or forgotten history. But one of the things that I think is interesting is that, especially at the time, they were all contributing, and some of them that maybe seem to have been forgotten a little bit were very significant contributors to what was happening in the state and in the legislature at the time. So, I think that it's interesting that everybody has a role to play, and I think that for us in the Planning Commission, we all have our contributions. We all contribute little bits here and there. Sometimes you think you'll come out of a meeting and be like, yeah, I was just there today. But you have your contributions that maybe you didn't feel it as much, but some of the others of us maybe did, and so we all participate, and I appreciate everybody's participation in the meetings and in the discussions that we have, and all the little comments help to kind of build toward what we're all trying to do, which is make Centerville better and make Centerville, make sure we're headed in the direction that we feel is best for the city and the residents of the city. So I thank you all for that, and I thank you for all your big contributions, all your little contributions, and everything in between. So I'll offer a brief prayer and then we'll get started. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. We thank Thee that we could gather together as a planning commission to discuss the items before us. We thank Thee for the freedom we have to be able to do so, and for the ability we have to discuss freely and openly the items and the things that we agree with, disagree with, and we thank Thee that we can serve the community and the city. We ask Thee to bless us that we can do what we feel is best for the city, and that we can always have others in mind when we do those things, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 All right, let's go ahead and get started then. We've got the first thing on the agenda. It's a doozy. Just kidding. We need to adopt the schedule for next year, the 2023 meeting schedule, which Whitney has put up on the screen. Anyway, just real quickly, I like to ask this just to make sure that it's obvious, clear and obvious. Anything unusual out of the second and fourth Wednesday, or are these all just second and fourth Wednesday?
Second and fourth Wednesdays, except November and December are just the second Wednesday.
Except for November, December, where we only have the one meeting, so. Yeah, and we don't have to avoid 24th of July or
Nope, not this year.
anything else like that.
I mean, October 11th is around Columbus Day, but I think we missed that one.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's on a Monday.
Is it on a Monday? Oh, that's
Do
right.
we
It's always
observe it on the Monday?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I just went through the holidays today as a side note, so that's fresh on my mind. It's October
Columbus
8th.
Day, did you say it was?
Yeah, Columbus
Or
Day is-
indigenous persons, or
Correct,
whatever
it's
they.
usually-
Whatever it's called.
Yes. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns about the 2023 meeting schedule?
One of them falls on my birthday in August, so I'm not sure I'm gonna make them.
Okay.
Fair enough.
That seems crazy talk. You wouldn't want to come to, this is the absolute pinnacle of the day.
This is kind of, I do look forward to these days. I have, in my calendar, I mean, they're already in my calendar right now. That's how much I'm
Wow.
looking forward to this.
All right. Well, then, I hereby make a motion to accept the 2023 Planning Commission meeting schedule as proposed.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do this one together. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that motion passes. All right, let's go on to the next item on the agenda. This matter has been scheduled for a public hearing, and this is to discuss the 2022 moderate income housing plan and the feedback that we got from the Department of Workforce Services. And we'll turn the time over to Corey.
Thank you, Chair Daley, members of the commission. Just by way of procedures, as you know, there's a tight deadline under state law to get back the corrected edits in order to comply with the bill that was passed last year, and that's February 16th. So I thought we'd get a jump start this year, use a meeting next first in January and see where we can be, because we can just barely make a council meeting potentially, depending on what we do. So by way of logistics, we've set up for this discussion, but we also advertise it as a public hearing in order to meet the noticing and getting it open. But obviously, we don't have a complete document yet. So the expectation was have the discussion, open the public hearing, and then table that to your next meeting in January. And then we'd have a full set of example goals to go through. So sitting back just for the wild tangent, it was interesting to get this nice letter that we got from Workforce Services, acknowledging that we were fairly basic in some of our submittals, but having attended a couple of trainings from ULTC and the planning chapter, and the way they explain things, since this was fairly new, coming in fairly quick to get adopted with deadlines. Workforce Services still was not organized on how they were going to review things until December 1st of this year, but we had to get everything in by October 1st of the year. We were kind of under the impression of, look, these are more complex goals. Some have been combined, but everybody's got to choose 3 to 5. Remember, the 3 is the minimum by law, 5 if you want to have preferential treatment. I approached it from, look, we'll broaden it, not just be basic. We'll try to hit something better than even the 5, because we have subcategories. And the idea under my mind was, well, we don't understand how some of these strategies would really work or what the tools would be. So let's put something together for the exploratory. And we were told that the idea was to get a head start and start understanding these, and then as the reports over the next 5 years come in, we would start seeing where the hiccups were, where things weren't working, how the market was responding, and so forth. So I thought, well, this is fairly basic, but I felt good because we kind of didn't go just the basic. As in our discussion, we said, well, we don't know if that one will work, but let's not rule out this one. Maybe that one will work. And so I thought, well, we kind of hit that minimum threshold. And then we got the letter from Workforce Services, which I have to admit, it was kind of a gut punch. because I'm like, wow, I either really misunderstood or I don't know what I'm doing. So it felt a little personal because I had gone to these trainings and thought we were kind of getting our feet wet. And then I discovered in between there was going to be a meeting with city managers, which I was invited by our city manager to be a fly on the wall for Zoom. And I learned that 45% of the cities didn't comply. Later that equates to 66 cities didn't comply.
Is it 45 or 75?
40, yeah,
According to the.
75 cents.
Your email says 75.
oh, 75, excuse me.
Yeah.
75, but there were 66 cities in that count. And it ranged from some maybe missed the mark a little bit. In the end, it looks like we were kind of in the middle. Some cities didn't turn in anything. So, and I felt even a little better because 4 or 5 cities hired a consultant and they failed.
Oh, do they get that money back?
Well,
I-
yeah, that's the discussion
that's
of, so the leaders, Utah League of City Towns, doesn't Cameron Deal work for them? He says, let us know who those consultants are so we can start communicating and get back onto a page, because cities had spent some funds. But most cities tried to go it alone. So when I attended the city managers meeting, it was not a productive meeting. There was some strong feelings.
Wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah, there was a survey, I'll give you an example, there was a survey, 4 questions about the letter and the clear feedback, and said and ultimately is trying to find out, did you understand, did it give you good direction? And then one city manager texted in the chat and said, the 5th answer should have been ridiculous. So there was a lot of hard feelings, and so I think there's a lot of pushback, but unfortunately those who work for Department of Workforce Services don't have a lot of latitude. But there is a feeling that maybe how Workforce Services interpreted the statute, what everybody thought we were doing, didn't really sink in together, because, what is an appropriate benchmark? And is it the same for every city? What does it mean? Because everybody's having to choose the list, but everybody's going to do it and approach it differently. So then they offered, which was really nice, Workforce Service offered a one-on-one, so I scheduled that on December 1st, attended that, and it was so different than the letter and so different than the city managers meeting. It came across, and probably pressure, because now you're working with somebody that's kind of down on my level of staff, not really in control of anything, and just really charged with help cities get in compliance. And it really focused more that, your implementation just didn't have some clarity to it. And I was like, oh, okay, I can somewhat accept, that critique, because I agree. It wasn't like spelled out step by step by step by step. But I think you read my initial letter to,
I liked it.
it was certainly giving a little bit more information than I debated whether you should get it, and I thought, no, they need to see what the communication is going and the frustration that happens in the behind the scenes. So it was a good meeting, and there were services to offer that if we get some drafts early in January, send it to them, they will take a quick look at it and say, hey, you're missing the mark, and no, we think, they can't guarantee it'll pass because that's got to go through their process, but the goal with the staff is to say, we want to get you there. So we'll give you feedback to get you there. And so then I walked away going, okay, I'll skip the gripe session stuff and try something out. So what I prepared for you is just an example of one that was really something that I think is something the city's interested in, whether it pans out or, it's kind of like the ADUs. How many people will take advantage of it? We don't know, but that was easier for me to take some steps, because when you start saying work with an entity that will qualify for, HUD housing, I don't know. And so in that discussion, they out of the result of the letter, she sent me some examples. And then I looked at the examples and said, okay, I'm starting to get a picture of how we can improve our implementation section. So at this point, there's that feeling that I had, fine, we're just going to go to 3, copy someone else, send it in and pass so we don't get turned down on transportation funds. You know, that, to me, we're trying to expand our horizons, and I started to feel like, oh, yeah, forget this. No creativity at all. Let's just copy and paste something that passes and worry about it later. I think you hinted that in the email. But, you know, I do still want the idealism to come around and say, is there something we can pick? So I think really from the commission, the direction is we probably shouldn't have as many as we selected now, because I did ask this question, I did get an answer, but I'm still uncomfortable because of the initial letter. I asked if we did 3 that met your benchmarks, and then we did 2 more, but we just kind of do what we think we kind of do, but really still stay in the realm of exploring, and don't hit your benchmark in your interpretation, does that disqualify us? And the reason I asked that question is one city was turned down on one of their strategies because they called out section 17-54-5 and didn't put .2.
Really?
And that Axton, that was one of the criteria that Axton failed it. Which Lisa gave us some advice. Repeat the state statute strategy verbatim and don't misspell, because that was a criteria they were using. So that was the genesis of, well, so what if we explore a couple, but meet 3 that are rigid to your standards? And they said, yeah, you'll be okay. I'm still not overly confident. So I think, well, the other 2 we could pick, just say, still in draft. So I think we should narrow it down just a little bit, but maybe not as the tone of my email saying just pick 3. You know, kind of the direction from you, or is there top 3 favorites or top 4 favorites? Is my benchmarking a little insulting, saying we will take first step this year, second step next year, and we'll take all 5 years to accomplish the goal? And my worry is you have to set that 5-year horizon, but in the city managers meeting, they're saying, but you can't just go around and shift everything every year, because then you look like you're not taking it serious. And so they brought up in the meeting ADUs. You can put in ADUs. And I'm like, well, every city here should have already passed this before you even got this bill. So if somebody's selecting ADUs, what? So somebody asked that question, and they said, well, you could still keep it. Just put in a benchmark that says you will publicize it and encourage it at community fairs. And I was like,
Well, then let's do that.
Right? That doesn't, but that passes.
that was the example that the head school teacher said, fine. So I still think we don't know what we're doing when we call out benchmarks and steps. But they want, the way the letter's written is you're going to do a report next year, and this is where I got a little frustrated in the meeting listening, and it's going to be an essay, and you're going to explain what you did, how you did it, why you did it, and what didn't happen. And I'm like, okay. I started thinking this is a 2024 problem, because I'll be gone. So, it's just, it's all over the map. And so I don't want to be negative, because I think the message is if the cities just do this out of rebellion, then the state legislature is going to step in harder. But then I thought, well, if 66, they say tough, we don't care if we expire on February 16th, that might send a different message. But transportation funds are really sacred to cities, so you don't want to play that roulette game. So really just, provide an example I think meets their benchmarks from all the conversation. It allows us some flexibility, and I'm worried about setting goals that we accomplish in 1 year, and then, oh, we did the ADUs, we publicized it, oh, okay, next year, we publicize it again.
Yeah, can it be the same benchmark?
They're not explaining that.
No. 1 year is at the 4th of July party.
1 year is at Halloween,
Then we're gonna do it at the
At
pumpkin walk.
Christmas.
Yep, and then we'll do it at the Christmas
and then
lighting.
we'll do it at the Whitaker Museum.
Yes, good.
Done.
Well, I'm feeling good that you sense you're equal to my
I am
sarcasm
often-
and frustration.
Yeah, I'm often frustrated with our state legislature.
So some feedback, I certainly can, I don't expect you to craft anything unless you have some specific things or want to send me any suggestions after the meeting, but I'll put together 3 to 5 again, 3.
Did they give you ideas of how to make the ones we did have passable?
No
Not really.
specific help, just,
Why?
As I don't think they know,
Okay.
I think they're trying, in a staff level, I think they're stuck with something that they don't know how to put their arms around it either. But they're supposed to turn something into the state legislature
So who
at the end of
decided
each
if
year.
they passed or didn't? Who's the teacher? Who
Let's
graded
see,
these?
it's not the person that wrote the letter. I'm trying to remember the name.
it's not the Alyssa.
It's not.
It's not Alyssa. Alyssa's a
yeah,
staff
and-
plant.
And she offered to help,
Yeah,
but it's not her who grades it.
no. It was the head school teacher at the city manager meeting, and I forget the name.
And start with a C, like Christina or something like that.
You're right, you're right.
So here's a question. When this went to council, was there a discussion about how much of the city's monetary finances would be used in these?
No, I thought that they would just start pushing back and say, we don't want to try this and we don't want to try this. And they basically said, maybe with a little bit of feeling handcuffed, okay, this is good enough, we'll send it in.
Move on.
And then we'll see what happens from there. So they didn't really dig into it, they just were complying with the statute.
Here's my concern. As we start to spell out and explain things in enumerated steps, it becomes easier and easier for someone to review it and say, this is going to be ching and ching and ching, and there's going to be a lot more pushback.
I agree with you.
And so if we select some of these were pretty expensive endeavors, or could
Could
potentially.
be,
yeah.
Could, depending on how, once we get past the hand waving. I'm less inclined to do the very expensive ones and more inclined to do, for example, the mortgage assistance, the ADU. I'm actually pretty sold on promoting the ADU idea, and then one more.
I'm in the seat that you're in because we got to fill out a report, we got to have things that show what we tried to do, and if we're just picking one that we are completely unfamiliar with, and we put in a report that says, well, we looked online and called someone, they're going to say you're not taking it serious.
Yeah, I agree with Mason on that one, that, if we got to start putting in some real specifics about how we're going to do the expensive stuff, that's going to be a bit of a problem. Part of the reason why we picked some of those is that we could explore them, right? And
Exactly.
see, okay, we can explore this, and maybe later we'll decide how expensive we want to get.
Right.
I do like, so on the example that you put in there, which takes the plan element 6 and expands it, I was comparing what you have as the example to what we, I guess, submitted before. And, I like that approach. You think that that's enough, is to break out a yearly benchmark for, this is what we have
That's
hoped to
what I'm
accomplish.
perceiving. What's this benchmark? Report on it. What's this benchmark? There is an attitude that you might hit a benchmark and it fails. They get that. It's just, don't shift around trying to smoke screen different strategies just to, they want some concerted effort. It gets back to the whole frustration of is, they're really pushing on the cities, but how much can we really do? Because a lot of these strategies are turning into the cities developing. And there's a controversy in the public when cities become developers.
That's exactly my concern.
Right.
That's what motivated all my questioning.
Yeah. And subsidized tracking. And, so I can envision where a strategy that's more complex and is partnering with things, where we go and explore 1 year with what the other cities are doing in theirs to see if they have a joint effort to do. Or in the second year, we're going to the county and saying, hey, the county, you going to do something? Are you thinking of something? And then we report back and say, hey, adjacent cities and counties aren't planning anything, so we can't really join into a housing program because they're either don't have the tools, don't have the funding, and what he wouldn't want to hear is they're not interested, which might be the case. So I don't think it's that you have to, because you look at a couple examples, because I said they committed to 100 units or 200 units, whatever it is, by year 3 or 4, and I'm like, well, I'm not picking that kind of commitment. We'll fail grossly right now.
Easy, we'll fail easy.
So to me, if I were to do something like that, I would say year 3, we'll explore how many we can actually fund now that we've got this information.
Sure.
And so year 3, we would set the target one. I don't want to set us up for failure at year 3. And, and I got things like, well, then you go to the council and like an overlay zone for density. Well, we already have a density bonus program. It's not the best in the world, but it's just centered around getting more density for better design. We could shift it around and get more density for dedication of 10%, housing units. And we'll structure that next year, and we'll encourage adoption in year 2, and then we could report whether anybody even wants to use that plan for density. But, as soon as I, come up with density, it's back to why we didn't choose zone higher densities, and because we can zone higher densities and you're not going to get affordable housing. It's going to have to be subsidized in the marketplace in order to be affordable. And I don't think we're a city really with the staff and the breadth and the commitment to start a separate division focused on securing property, deeds tracking, or funds in lieu, get this density with funds in lieu. This one holds it, and then what do you do with the money? And if the money can't be spent, how long can you hold it? It's like impact fees. You got to get them spent within an X period of time, or it's refunded back to the developer. I don't want to get into that, because we don't start holding money, but you can't build anything.
It almost seems to me like there should have been some consideration given to towns, cities of the 3rd class, cities of the 1st class, et cetera, So, but obviously there isn't.
So I'm giving you the positive of meeting with staff and the negative of meeting the city managers. You're getting a mixed reaction from me tonight.
All right, so, yeah, so you're looking for...
Just a little bit of direction in what
direction.
you'd like me to do. I've got a little bit already. If we genuinely agree, hey, some of them can be very expensive, start looking back and paring that away, Corey. And I could do that.
Let's do a couple things really quickly. We need to open the public hearing. Now, we're not going to close the public hearing.
Right, table it.
Right.
Table it.
So let's go ahead and we're going to open the public hearing, table it, and then we'll come back for some final direction to Corey and kind of go along that line.
Call it a year.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing and invite anybody who would like to speak to this matter to do so. Great. Seeing nobody, we will suspend the public hearing, pause.
I'd probably table it and continue it.
Okay.
Or, you can close and continue it, but you probably want to keep it open for the next time.
Okay. Well, but we don't
You
need
could
to.
close it, and then in your motion, just continue it to the next.
Okay, we'll do that. So we'll close it for this meeting, and then in our motion, we will continue it to the next meeting. Okay, thank you, Lisa. Okay, so then, Corey, back to the direction. I agree with Mason 100% that some of these things, that if they get expensive, that's not the direction we want to go, right? And certainly, the city should not be a developer. The city is not in the business of all that business stuff that you're talking about, so if it looks like it's headed that way, out. So,
I'm also worried, like, what impact will it have on city staff? Is it mainly you? I mean,
Right
are
now,
you gonna
right
be
now, we're
going-
defaulting to the planner
Do
to
you know what
take
I
care
mean?
of
Like-
it.
Like,
yeah, it's gonna be you and Whitney to,
are you gonna go to the,
Apparently it's gonna be me in 2024.
but I mean, like, when we talk about these things and like the promotion of the ADU, do you have a budget to promote the ADU?
Well,
Like,
that would be what I would do with
Are
the
you-
city manager at the budget time and say, we got to comply with this, you need to give me
Yeah.
some cash if, and we're suggesting we promote it this way. And I'd certainly bring back to the commission to get direction on promotion, because this is our
Yeah.
together group to try to get this to happen, and then
We all
promote
rotate,
it.
we all rotate an event and we all promote it.
Yeah, I would
we'll all
like to,
sign up at booths at the,
I would like to see you on a float in the parade.
There you go.
That'd be good.
You could, yeah. I don't know, I just.
in my ADU on the float.
Oh.
This is where the planner lives. He got a mortgage assistant and now is on a small trailer.
We got rid of our trailer park, I'm sorry. You can't live here now. We don't have any.
Yeah, that was the hard part is you have a goal that says to preserve affordable housing, and the Hive development was not preservation.
Anyway, anything else, any other feedback for Corey? You got your,
Yeah, just, I think I'm more inclined to see your write-up on the ADU and your write-up on, you've already done a good job on the mortgage assistance. Yeah, let's
Pare
just,
down some where we maybe look at a couple of partnerships and then go, meaning talking to cities in the county or the housing authority or something like that, and seeing what their programs are.
possibly exploring the expensive options. I was looking through the list and there's, pass an ordinance for this, do a zone for that.
Right. Yep.
I don't know how much we want to explore those, but
But they're more locally doable, and even if they fail, we have benchmarks.
they're
Or
more,
even- Yeah, even the one that says, zoned for different densities, and you could say, well, yeah, we're gonna do an analysis this year on the west side, and we're gonna
Yeah.
promote this, and then we're gonna analyze it, and then, and then
Have a-
actually zone for it in 4
Have a
years from
public
now.
hearing.
Yeah.
What if it doesn't work, it doesn't work? I mean, if your analysis says it doesn't work.
that's right.
But I mean, I think we could take some of the goals or ideas we already have for the west side, or, others for fixing our
Yeah.
general plan on the densities.
I think
Put
I
those two things together.
understand.
You know how you're spending your Christmas break?
Not on this. Don't listen to him.
brutal.
Not on this.
Okay, all right, then I will make a motion to table this matter and continue the public hearing to the next meeting on which this is on the agenda.
Second.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that motion passes, and this matter's been tabled. Okay, next up, the Community Development Director's report and City Council report. Corey?
So we've scheduled your second meeting that you've tabled to. The application deadline for that meeting is the 21st. We have a few that have been preliminarily preparing. I don't know if they'll come in on the deadline. Do you know of any others that have actually submitted?
Just that Chase one, but they won't talk to us, so I don't
They
know what they're
haven't
doing.
paid or get back to us. We have the subdivision on, was it Chase Creek or whatever it is on Chase Lane that they rezoned originally.
Yeah.
So I think we have about 3 applications, and then I know that there's a couple of plat amendments being in the wings, but nothing's officially submitted. So the deadline's the 21st, so we'll see what happens. And I didn't put your goals because I think we're at the end of the year. We need to talk about, we've accomplished a lot of them in some form or fashion. Did we report that Lisa salvaged some of the parking? Lisa, do you want to take credit for that?
Oh yeah, let's talk about parking.
Lisa did it. She accomplished it. I don't know how she did it, but she pulled out the wand and,
Well, Corey agreed. We just tried to salvage the text amendments in the parking recommendations, because the council did ask staff to do more analysis on changing the table, which means, X number of parking stalls per, place of worship or all those. So some of those seemed controversial, but we thought that there was enough merit to the parking modification amendments,
the stacking, things
and,
like
yeah,
that.
the stacking and the
Misspells,
drive-through.
inconsistencies.
And then, there were some inconsistent references in the table. So we did get the text amendments through, and the only changes we made on the table were the incorrect references, but there were 2 council members that actually wanted to table it and bring everything back, so we're not doing it piecemeal, but I also didn't want to lose, like, if they never get it back, like politically it just stalls, let's at least get what we worked on and let's get it in the year that we, numbered it. That was probably the saving grace. I didn't want to have to renumber it because if we move it over to 2023, then it messes up my ordinance chart.
So Lisa, is there an appetite maybe at the council to finish it with the table? And
Yes, they wanted to have a work session.
Yeah, surprisingly so. I think that maybe when it was tabled, it was tabled with direction to staff to do some analysis on, real life. How is this going to change, some of, Target or other things or banks. But I think at the last city council meeting, they just agreed to start really with a work session and, and hear from the engineer, because someone mentioned, hey, we didn't just pull these numbers, we hired an engineer to, help us with these numbers, and that it does appear in the real world that we're different than our neighbors, and so we're creating a lot more work by having all these parking modifications. And so, anyway, I think the agreement was to schedule a work session early in the year before we hit budget season, to just bring the traffic engineer in. And I don't know if they agreed to do that with the planning commission or just.
I think they just wanted to do it and review what the traffic engineer said, and because there was positive comments of, the planning commission put a lot of work in this.
Yeah.
And we continue to just ignore it. We don't think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Love it.
So I think by the time they go through the traffic engineers, they probably will hit a couple of them, because I kind of know where the sore spots are, like on Office. And I'm inclined to just say, if that's your sacred place, leave it, pass the other ones.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think all appearances, I thought it's 99% probably going to pass, and we might, at least the positive meeting. So, it depends on what's on their agenda and what we fed them at the work session. So I don't.
We tried to take out the controversial, but they agreed, or two of them, were pushing for definitely bringing it back. And
Okay.
So it was positive. So most of your goals, subdivision ordinance, we still got to get our arms around all the changes.
Yep.
So I think we should be talking about a joint work session in this budgetary period at some point in time. Because the general plan, my understanding from Jake is we didn't really qualify again, even though there was thinking that we would qualify. And I know that there is a preliminary step to do a market analysis to the west side. And so we talked about a general plan next year, and some were saying, we know it's an election year, but we need to get going. And others were like, what does that drive? How does the public respond? But that's a major goal, and we just talk about, before we finalize a budget, talk about that. Are we doing that this year? And we shouldn't waste the money on the market study if that really takes place. And even if it's pared down a little bit and we just pick the west plan and the main elements, because I've gone through and started drafting just my version of the changes of the main elements that I think are way problematic. And, maybe we can convince them in the goal session to do something like that. So I think it's time for a good, solid goal session.
It's been a long time since we've done that. Was it before COVID, the last time we did that? I think it was.
Yep. So that's my plan, is to, before they get too far into the budget and committing money, we talk about goals that we want to accomplish. There's some that I just want to pretend, put my head in the sand on the South Main Street plan and wish it away. But
I don't know, Corey.
we need to solve it.
That's another one that we've spent a lot of time on. But anyway.
Is there any way those goals and those plans you're all talking about can help us with the previous conversation on your, your moderate income housing?
I thought that there was
Some, yeah.
there was some of it, like some of the mixed use elements of the South Main Street plan.
And some of the reformatting that we've been slowly doing on the west side, and some of the changes there that have been looked at. So yeah, we've got some opportunity,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Corey. All right, let's go on to the last item on our agenda, which is to review the minutes of our previous meeting. So we'll go through these quickly. If anybody has any changes on page 1, I'd like to hear about it. Page 2, page 3, page 4, and finally page 5. No? Great. Somebody else want to make a motion? I've made all the motions today. I'm motioned out.
Oh, motion to approve the minutes.
Second, I'll second it. There you go. I got it. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, those minutes are adopted, approved. All right, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.